Here we go. Hey, everybody. It's just Greg and Jesse today.
Whoa. It was just Greg and Jesse today. I hope I'm still on. Someone send me a comment if that's the case. But Greg will be back. I am here.
I'm back. I don't know what just happened. Just the whole thing said it disappeared on the window just went away.
You scared me.
I know you were going to have to do it on your own. So we don't have Chuck. I'm actually looking right now. I'm using Chuck's StreamYard account as well for this, and we don't have logos. We have to figure.
You know what? Sometimes you need to just take it all down, strip it down.
Wait! I found it. There we go. All right, thank you. Anyway, so this is not going to be a long call today, but we're going to talk about a couple of cases. And I'm looking at, and since I'm driving, I'm looking at Chuck's. Let's see. Let's start with this one, the I-601 case, the Boulay case. So this we now have our plaintiffs for the appeal. Everybody that was interested in continuing the case, which we're handling the appeal on a pro bono basis. That's they've contacted. So Aaron's not here, and Aaron's basically managing getting that ready for for filing for the appeal. But that's, I think, all we have to say about it is that we are now moving forward with getting that appeal ready to file. Anything else you want to say about that?
No, I mean, other than it will go up to the 8th Circuit. A lot of the arguments are similar to what we see in the 601A realm, so we can just address it there.
Okay. All right. And moving on, looking for the 601A case. Where did you put that, Chuck? I don't see that on here. 601A. Here we go. There's nothing to add on to this. I mean, I did want to give a data update. We have 82 plaintiffs now that have their cases approved. We've had 6 in the last week. Mm-hmm. And the key thing on this is it's what they're working on June. These cases were filed in May and June. All these cases of 2020. Mm. So if you're working, our cases are sort of reflective of what's happening, I think, more broadly. But that's where all the cases that they're approving now, they weren't doing this initially with our cases, but in the last, 60 days or so, they've been improving them pretty much in order. Yeah. I did have a conversation with Chuck. I don't know if you were on that call or when we were talking about it, but he mentioned that he's looked at some of the data and that they're promised to be within a year when they made that statement, where I guess it was in October that they did some kind of Q&A or something like that they have not made any progress in the data. There's nothing to indicate that things have accelerated.
I think the backlog has grown by 13,000.
Yeah. So it's gotten worse, and they're talking about by the end of the fiscal year, and we're already we're already a quarter of the way through the fiscal year. So
yeah, that's not going to happen unless they start changing the way they process them to do last in, first out. I will say though, and I mentioned this to you and Chuck the other day, we, despite what's likely to happen in the 9th Circuit with how they rule on whether courts can look at delays of 601As, there have been favorable district court decisions more recently. I mean, we started off where courts were routinely saying, "Nah, I can't look at this," and we've seen some really positive results. Eastern District of Virginia, I mentioned the Colorado one before. There's been some others. So hope is all not lost on 601A litigation. I think it's super important that people do pursue their rights in every court. And also there's the 4th Circuit appeal that's still pending decision as well. So, we keep trudging along. We're not getting any help from the agency, as Greg mentioned, and we just, the battle continues.
Yeah. I mean, I did. I went last week. I was a speaker at this conference in DC on physician immigration, and one of the speakers was Doug Rand on a government panel. He did give some, an interesting updates as far as the digitization project, and that's a big part of how the government's going to hopefully get themselves out from under this mess. But I don't, my understanding of what's happened with the 601As is that they spent a fair amount of time getting all those files digitized or uploaded into their system, which would allow them, and then they also transfer the jurisdiction over to this new virtual service center, the HART, the Humanitarian, and I forget what it stands for. But that all sounded great. It sounded like it was like sort of like a roadmap out of this mess. But that's been like 6 months since they got to that point. We're not seeing any evidence whatsoever that anything changed as far as processing goes. So what actually happened once all these, once this happened, they hired all these people. They digitized all these cases, got them moved over. So, I don't know if they had training, or maybe they didn't hire all these people, or maybe they're having other issues, but we're not seeing any evidence of actually an acceleration, which we should have seen by this point if they were going to live up to that pledge. Yeah. Otherwise, I think we're looking at basically a 4-year processing time for eternity.
What put us in this position? Because something happened in 2019. Besides COVID, where it became deprioritized is what happened. And right. They wanted to do citizenship naturalization applications, and they wanted to do EADs and other things. That's okay. What I would tell Doug is, listen, I love everything you're doing. Let's go to the 20th century before we can even think about maybe even going to the 21st. I love it. Sounds great. I've been hearing it since I was in college, legitimately. Can you give them EAD when they have a application pending, because they're killing families?
Yeah. So, obviously that's if they're not able to, look, if they were able to get to that 1-year timetable, and we were going to have all these cases proved within, but by the end of this fiscal, year, maybe you can make that argument that just leave things be. But I think you're right. If they're not going to be able to achieve that, then they need to figure out some interim relief. The other thing is sort of relating to EADs and advanced paroles is that, this is sort of a bigger picture question, which is that they spend so much of their human resources working on EADs and advanced parole documents, neither of which involve any actual substantive adjudication. So on an average EAD application, all they're doing is verifying, and this could be done by a computer, but all they're doing is verifying that the person has the underlying application and that they have all the correct information, and then it's like click on there. There's almost nothing for an examiner to do other than just move it along. And the advanced parole is also completely routine for a travel document. When was the last time you ever heard about an advanced parole application being denied? They don't get denied. It's a perfunctory decision on there, but it's a huge amount of work for the agency, and I don't know how many thousands of people work on those two processes. But if they could make basically receipts into travel documents and work authorization documents, and it would have zero impact on the immigration system because they're all being approved anyway. And all of those people could be moved into, and also, but if anything, it would help the economy because there would have a lot more people working and being able to move in and out of the country for work purposes much more quickly. But, if they tried those kinds of things out, they would have a lot more people to work on the actual labor intensive applications like an I-601A.
Yeah, no, again, I don't know. I don't want to say it's too late, but, I always, we're staring down the barrel of 2024 here. And I just think that, regardless of their intentions, good, bad, or indifferent, this 601A backlog and 601 backlog is going to present challenges, and they have to find a way to get out. They have like 6 months, like they need to do something in 6 months. Like
the other concern is that we could see a change in administration in January 2025, in which case, these backlogs are just going to get much, much worse deliberately. So, they need to make systemic changes right now, like along the lines we were just talking about, before that potentially happens. Otherwise, basically, they tried to kill the immigration system the last time. I don't think there's any sort of better way to describe it. We're just making the whole thing not work. And this administration should have been thinking along the lines of how do we prevent that from happening with some future administration, now that we know that there's an inclination to do that in some respects. But we're really not saying that.
No, we're not. And I think that's why we're in the courts, right? That's why we're litigating this. And maybe the trend will continue to get better on that front. And courts will say, you know what, I do have a role to play in holding the agency accountable to some type of reasonable timeline. And that's all we're asking for. USCIS jumps up and down and everyone, thinks we're asking for the world. We're just asking for a reasonable processing time.
Sure.
Hopefully the courts, hopefully we get there, and more, that's a TBD though.
All right. Anything else to say sort of about this case in itself?
Just that, we don't have a decision from the Ninth Circuit yet. And so our case is going to just kind of remain on pause for the time being.
Right. Okay. All right. The head scratcher case, as far as why we are still why we're still talking about this case, is pending now that we're 14 months in since the arguments in the circuit court. I guess it was September of 2022. It was pre-ChatGPT.
Yeah,
that's how you can date it. The arguments are pre-ChatGPT.
I think it's 15 months since the argument. Of course, it's been forever since the case began. DB 2020, and I don't have an explanation, to be honest, other than I know that there's going to be a dissent no matter what, meaning one judge is going to disagree with two others. I would be shocked if there were otherwise, but I don't have an explanation at this point. I really don't.
I mean, to some extent, it's maybe a good sign, because it's a lot easier it would have been a lot easier for them just to deny this thing quickly, probably, if they were willing to do that. I don't know. We can speculate all day long, but the bottom line is that we don't have a decision. And we don't have any way to influence when that decision is going to happen, which I know lots of people are like, why can't you call the judge?
Yeah. Oh, the government's tried to do that too. They put in, so sometimes the game you'll play is you'll try to tell the court there's this new case that really is important. About, I don't know if it was 6 to 8 months ago, the government tried that. And it was the case was, it helped us, to be honest, did not help them. So, I don't know. I think I will say, like I've said this a couple of times, this case is definitely about those that have the potential to get a visa. But what they're going to say in that opinion is going to have enormous implications about all types of cases, about shutdowns and stopping the immigration system, and what role the government, the courts can play in that. And this case is actually going to have, it's going to be enormous for, like we said, if we do have a change in administration, or even if we don't, what role do the courts have to keep the immigration system running? Because if it wasn't for Gomez, good luck, go, the DV system would have been shut down for 2 years. And it was shut down for close to 4, if you add it all together. So,
yeah.
And then, of course, everyone needs to understand, I've said this before, but it's the court decision. And then it's, okay, identifying the pool for 2020, what number of people in that pool are going to get selected for one of these visas, and medicals, and I'm sure there's going to have to be some type of process to get that expedited, and hopefully the government doesn't fight us on that. But yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's like, we just have to get past this first part before we even get to that.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So,
but I mean, that's, I'm gonna, I guess my ex DMs are gonna go from, that to where's the decision to where's my visa, and I'm gonna have to, focus on that.
All right, one win at a time. Let's see.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to one where there actually is some news. And this is the Shumalina / Axtova group of plaintiffs. But basically, just to give people a quick background, Ukrainians and Afghans who came to the United States under humanitarian parole, Congress created Congress rarely does any immigration lawmaking, but they did in the case of those two populations, where they said if you came into the country before a particular date using parole, you're to get the same benefits as people coming in the refugee program. Normally, that's, most of the refugee benefits that people think of are housing assistance and cash assistance and food stamps and that kind of thing. But there are some immigration benefits that refugees get in addition to the actual immigration benefit of coming in as a refugee. They get permanent residency after a year, or they can apply for permanent residency after a year. And they also get the right to work automatically when they enter the United States, and also can, and within 90 days, they are required to have a Social Security number, or an unrestricted Social Security number, or an employment authorization document. But if they want an employment authorization document, they don't have to pay for it. So those are basically your immigration benefits that refugees get. And by this law from Congress, Ukrainian parolees and Afghan parolees also get that. The USCIS ignored that law for a while, and they were telling Ukrainians and Afghans, no, you have to have work authorization. You don't get automatic work authorization. We have to approve it first, and we're going to make you pay for that document to evidence your work authorization. We sued in Chicago last year in the Shumalina case, and had a successful result where USCIS reversed policy. And they said, as of November or whatever, forget the date, but it's a little over a year now, that Ukrainians and Afghans get automatic work authorization, and they don't have to pay for work cards. But they only made the policy going forward. So we took our mostly successful result as a win, but we had agreed that we were not going, and I think they tried to get us to agree not to pursue the matter any further, and we said, no, we'll accept this, but we're still going to come after you for fees for people that you are not refunding, that have already paid millions and millions of dollars. So we filed a follow-up suit in the DC District Court. For reasons where we don't have to get into, the case has been transferred to the Eastern District of New York. And we've been going back and forth with the government on preliminary issues, but we finally had our first conversation with the magistrate judge in the Eastern District of New York yesterday. And Jesse, I'll let you take the story from here.
Yeah, no, it was her name is Judge Bloom. Super knowledgeable, very familiar with the facts of the case, the implications, and made it painfully clear that she thinks this case should resolve. And people who have paid $410, which she said is a lot of money for some people, need to be paid back. And there wasn't really much to hide on that. And she didn't want to have this case dragging on for months and months and years and years. She wanted this thing done. And she took the initiative to set another hearing in about a month from now And, it was really what we have been asking for like almost I don't know, 2 years, but definitely a year, more than a year since we filed initially, which is, and I remember Greg and I having this conversation over a text when we first started. It was like, are we crazy, or does the law say what we think it says? And I think the judge finally was kind of asking the same question, but now it's different. Now it's, wait a minute, you didn't pay the people back? And kind of in disbelief. And I think that's always been our thought too, and that it's long overdue that this happens. And so it's encouraging. Nothing obviously is finalized or going to be in days, but it just it feels good when you are in this line of work representing people in need, and you think you should win yesterday, right? Just like Go and Gomez and 601As, like we've been talking about, and you get before a judge finally who has done the homework and is trying to bridge the gap between the government's position and ours to say, you guys should really take care of this and not bother the courts. And so, encouraging sign. We have another hearing in about a month, hopefully between now and then. Over the holidays, perhaps we can hammer out a settlement. What was most amazing, I will say this, what was most amazing is the government has identified only 33 Afghans who paid and have not been paid back. And the judge was adamant that those 33 people, because we said, hey, we don't think maybe there's a class there that we can represent.
We've tried to find those people.
We have. And if any of them out there, please email us. If you're out there and you've paid $410 and you're an Afghan national, definitely. But the judge she said, I understand your reasons for not going forward, but those people need to be paid back. She's like, so regardless.
You know who knows where those people are? The government. Yeah.
Totally. They could, and we are going to reach out and we are going to try to find them. But it just the point really was she was so just fired up to make sure that these people who paid $410, she really understood that is a lot of money to people who are refugees or treated as refugees. And that's what we've been saying. We've been hammering this like over and over again to the government, and they've told us, we're crazy or whatever. So, more to come there, but it's definitely encouraging. And I was happy about it, happy the way it went,
Yeah, no, it was, it's very encouraging. Hopefully the government got the message, I think.
I will say that the government attorney for the Eastern District of New York, who the judge called out as someone who was a problem solver, specifically, she's been fabulous because we've had calls with the government attorney. She's been absolutely fabulous and understanding, and she represents the client though.
She has a difficult client. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. But she gets it. She's been very nice and understanding on the call and willing to work with us. So let's get a deal done. Hopefully we can do this because
I think at the end of the day, we're very confident we're going to win this case. It's just a question of what the decision at the end, what a win looks like in terms of how it's structured and how long it's going to take. Yes. But we're going to win. We are going to win on this. I think that the government really would be. I mean, they're just being cruel by stretching this out longer than necessary, or they're being, I don't want to say thieving, but I mean, to the extent that they're trying to figure out a way to not refund money that they know that they are supposed to refund. I don't know what you call that.
They showed their cards a little bit before. I think, when we were, we've had these conversations where they think that, no matter what the statute says, that the Secretary of DHS always has the discretion to charge people. Okay. I'm not seeing it, but,
except when Congress specifically says no.
Yeah, right. Like,
you have that authority unless Congress actually carves into that authority, which they did.
Let's buy that argument for a second. But hold on, you're not charging them anymore, and you admit that you shouldn't have. So what do you mean? You get to just keep the money? I don't know.
they might take the position that, well, we were just being generous with the new policy and that we
Totally.
weren't required to do that. That's their position.
That's it.
Even
But
though,
that's the epitome of arbitrariness, though. Like that. So you're treating the same people really differently for based on the date. Like it doesn't make, you don't have a valid reason. There's no reason for
but
doing
at the end of the day, this is the rare case where Congress was quite clear.
Yeah.
What they were requiring. So it's when Congress actually specifically says to do something, it takes it out of the hands of the agency to exercise discretion or develop their own policies when they very specifically say, do not do this.
Yeah.
And then they go ahead and do it anyway. That's yeah. I mean, most of the arguments kind of ignore that this rare instance where Congress actually weighed in.
It also falls under the, why are we paying legal fees, taxpayers paying legal fees for this lawsuit? Like this one is maybe, maybe settle. Like why are we paying lawyers upon lawyers upon lawyers to go out and fight against something that it's not a good case, factually, legally, any way whatsoever. Call off the dogs for sure. That's what I would say. I don't know. If I were the attorney general, but I'm not.
Well, the interesting thing is they I think they understood well enough about Congress's intent, because they were very careful in this first case not to ever actually argue.
Oh yeah.
That Congress was wrong, that they were in the right as far as the way they were interpreting things.
They played me like a flute, Greg. I mean, I was so, I try to be civil and work with the government. They got me on that one because I thought that, we had them in a settlement and it was going to do everything. And, and they were putting these extensions. Yeah, no, they never really, they knew they couldn't.
Right.
Yeah. So
anyway, and and just also the one thing I'll remember from that case is the dishonesty of indicating to the judge multiple times that they were in settlement discussions with us when they were not actually. We never had a conversation with them about any of it. They just said that they were working on the issue, but we never actually got any indication that there was going to be a settlement, and they just rolled this solution to the judge without actually ever having a conversation.
Yeah, it was really distasteful about how that all went down. It's been some bad blood there, but ultimately, it should never be about. There's real people at the end of this who are owed some money. So hopefully, the refugees, by the way, they get their money back. I mean, let's not lose sight of this government, please. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've covered our cases. I'm just looking through the questions, and
do you want to touch on because this is why I'm tuned in.
Okay.
I want Greg Siskin, who nobody in the world would know this better. You tell me the implications of what's being debated about on Capitol Hill right now and why people need to follow it closely. Because there's some potential. Yeah,
there's I think give the Republicans some credit for staying unified on this, because it's really, I expected probably fall off to happen, but they have figured out a really powerful point of leverage to get some immigration changes that are distasteful to the administration. However, so basically, just in short, the Ukrainian arming Ukraine and arming Israel are two priorities for the administration. They have big packages that they want to pass on that. Ukraine seems to be the one that's the bigger priority right now because I guess they're running out of money on it, and President Zelensky was just in Washington yesterday to lobby on that. The Republicans in Congress said, we're not giving you any money. We don't have a problem necessarily with funding either one of those initiatives, but we're not doing it unless you give us all of these things on the border that we're asking for. Now, to their a lot of people are like, just sort of taking a step back, saying, "Oh, it's shocking" and all that. There's actually some precedent for linking foreign aid to the immigration issues in the past. It's happened before, but not actually anything of this concern where it's actively in a war that they're linked together. However, what they're asking for is, the Republicans are asking for a number of things. One is just a whole lot of money for border security initiatives. Two is a big expansion of detention of people at the southern that enter at the southern border, as well as removals. Third is disallowing people from showing up at the southern border and being able to apply for asylum. And then fourth is dramatically cutting back the president's ability to use the parole power, which we have been talking about with respect to Ukrainians, but also that applies to a lot of countries in the Caribbean and South America and Central American regions. All those things are on the table. Now, there are some who think that President Biden actually wants to probably cut a deal on immigration because it's hurting him politically, and he can kind of have get two birds with one stone with this, which he can get the aid that he wants, and then he can also, hopefully, if he gives the Republicans something that they are satisfied with on immigration, can maybe take that issue off the table for him for the election next year. Obviously, there are a lot of immigration advocates who are horrified at some of the changes that are being contemplated, particularly with respect to asylum. There are some of us who are saying, it's like, you're going to take the president's parole authority away. Why don't you also take the 212F authority away, which is what allowed for the DV ban and a lot of litigation that we had. I don't see that being on the table. I think the president is also, there's some reluctance. My guess is that they're going to fight hardest. It's going to be on parole because that's executive authority at its rawest. And the others are not so much about that. And also there are a lot of the administration has put a ton of resources into, getting these programs rolling. And also it's a part of their plan for how to actually prevent people from showing up at the southern borders if you have these programs in place. So all of that is to say time is very, very short. I think they're planning on going on recess on Friday. Chuck Schumer could basically, I guess, hold them there longer. But if I had to make a guess, I'm going to guess something's going to happen in the next couple of days on that. And it's probably not going to be something that immigration advocates are going to be too happy about. It would be nice if they solved a couple of things that where there's some bipartisan support, maybe something for DACA, maybe something on healthcare and high skilled. But I'm guessing that none of that's going to happen, and it's all going to be ways to keep people out of the country as opposed to ways to keep people to help people get here.
This is what drives me crazy, though, right? So you have Biden comes in. There's a list 1.5 miles long on how, the last 4 years previously, had kind of upended immigration as we know it, highly skilled everywhere you can get. Then we had the COVID as well. We needed doctors and we need nurses and we need all that stuff. And we don't have enough visas to give everyone who's been waiting. He says, you know what? I'm gonna tackle the border. I'm gonna put all my resources there, pretty much. Put all my resources there. Then Ukraine happens, and we're dealing with the Afghan, and we still haven't got the the SIV visa program up and running. We're gonna litigate that to the hilt. And now he's just like, yeah, all the things that I put my effort into, we're gonna upend. Title 42, asylum, which is a legal right by law for the last 50 years, if not longer, since the INA was enacted. And I'm just gonna cave. And I'm not gonna say, all right, well, you have to give me 1 million visas for employment-based or family-based. We have to do something with this backlog there. There's nothing coming except for aid that we're going to give to Ukraine? I don't get it. I mean, who is he? And again, I know I'm not a political animal. I don't like politicians in general. Either way they put their R or D or whatever they say they are, I just don't believe in them. I got to be honest. This is ridiculous. Like, I would say he would lose. I just would have a loss of respect if he can't come out with something for DACA or the green cards that have been lost or extinguished, or diversity visas. There's so many things he could do.
Well, I agree with that, although I don't think he's going to get Congress to actually agree to anything. So everything he's going to have to do, I think, that's helpful is going to have to be based on executive action at this point. Now, with that said, this is a good question that I posed here because it's about what we're talking about, which is if the Biden administration concedes on this stuff to get the Ukrainian aid now, and the Democrats are successful taking the House and the Senate next year, can concessions be recovered in the future? And the answer is yes. Everything that there's nothing that can't be potentially reversed. I mean, it's not going to help for people that are removed in the meantime. They're not going to be coming back. But this is a and there's a lot of things Congress can do on immigration in a negative way as well, even if they're not linking it to foreign aid based on not actually funding or shutting government down and all that. But yeah, this is all happening because we have we have a basically a nihilist Republican Party who doesn't really care about passing legislation. They just care about basically blowing things up. We've certainly seen that in the House. I just saw something this week that said this Congress has passed fewer bills than any Congress like in the last century. The House, I should say. The House has passed fewer bills, and something like 60 things have passed in the entire year. And that's things like naming a post office and stuff like that. I mean, we're not talking about big things. We're just super small initiatives. But basically, just so people know, Democrats control the Senate right now, but they don't have enough votes to stop the filibuster. So if Republicans can get, they can stop anything essentially by taking it to a 60 vote requirement. So the Democrats are not going to get to that. And the Democrats there are two Democrats. They can change it on a moment's notice, that 60 vote requirement. But there are two Democrats that are dead set against ending the filibuster, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. And that's not going to change. So the Democrats are going to have to at least pick up one more seat in their majority. Sinema is probably, I think she's going to lose re-election, and Manchin's not running. So his seat is going to become a Republican seat. So it means the Democrats actually have to have another gain to make up for him. So that has to happen in the Senate. The House is easier. If the Democrats get the House, I mean, Pelosi, even with a very small majority, was able to very effectively get legislation passed with almost the entire Democratic caucus doing so. So I'm more optimistic that the Democrats can recover the House even with a small majority, and the Democrats can get 2 more seats in the Senate. Then you'll see some dramatic changes on immigration. So we're not that far away. Of course, you have to keep the presidency too. I'm more optimistic than a lot of other people, actually, that Biden is going to be able to hold his seat. But those have to happen. Biden has to win re-election, and the Democrats have to win back the House, and we have 2 more seats in the Senate. Not out of the question, but you have to get the trifecta in order for this to get the big changes we want.
I just think of Biden, he ran a platform to change and go back to the asylum system we had. He didn't do what he said he was going to do for, a lot of the highly skilled stuff. We knew he wasn't a friend there. Right. I know they want to change the H-1B system and other things. And
I would not. He's done. I mean, he's done some very positive things on high skilled especially with some of the USCIS policy manual changes.
Sure. Yeah.
And all that, the AI executive order. I mean, there's a lot of things that I would give them a B minus on.
There are people in USCIS who are smart and know where the system needs to go, but in terms of making positive, like big change, the same energy has not been put into that it's been put into.
I would agree. I mean, if they really want to make big changes, there are some big changes on interpreting the law that they could do. They could say we're not going to count derivatives anymore.
But, I mean, they just need to do a better job of playing poker too. Like throw down. I mean, there's enough Republicans on public record supporting, change for DACA or permanent residency for DACA or a pathway, something. Put it out there. Why, I never, ever hear that, like, from this administration. Like, okay, here, you want me to just upend the amount of work and litigation expenses that we put into the border work, all of that, fine. You want to take away the parole, which is my whole thing, fine. I'll give you that too. But I'm not going to ask for, hey, well, there's millions on DACA who have been here, who are never going home. Why don't we, why don't we make some money and charge them $2,000 and give them green cards? Too simple? I don't understand it. Like, we could cover the cost of the Ukrainian aid by just making it tied to fees charged for permanent residency for anyone on TPS or DACA. Why not? Let's do it. You want to make money? Let's do it. But nobody.
I don't disagree with that, but I'm not so sure right now that if they can even get votes on DREAM Act, whether they would have the votes right now with the Republicans, at least to overcome a filibuster. Now, why they would filibuster, on something like that is a different question. But I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying the political reality right now, I think, they are going to make a deal. I think with the Republicans, it's going to not be a good deal. There's not going to be much on the winning. There probably aren't going to be any wins for the pro-immigration folks, whatever negotiation is going to happen. And it's just, I think that's just the reality, and we're just going to have to deal with that through elections.
If I were, listen, I don't like to divide people, especially when we're talking about human lives. But I would say this looks like a very big trade-off, because we know people are going to perish in these kind of warlike situations, which we have at the border and we have in Ukraine. And to me, it looks like we're just going to save people in Ukraine to not save people at the border. That's how I look at it. Yeah. And we're making a choice with people's. I just don't understand. I just don't like it. I would never in a million.
I think that, well, look, it's a blackmail situation, and it's just terrible. Totally. We should not have to make the choice on
Absolutely.
That. So I get it.
Yeah. I wish he would give one speech on immigration so that people actually know what the law says and what the point of asylum is, because I don't know if we understand it yet.
I would like more, there should be maybe a little history every once in a while mentioned that the whole asylum system is, based on the, what our commitments we made after the Holocaust.
Yeah.
There's a direct link. It's not just sort of like, where there were treaties signed and there was a system set up so that would never happen again. And when people were fleeing for their lives, that they would not be in a situation like they were in the 1930s, where the whole world basically put up a wall and said, no, and that's and that's, I think, sadly where we're headed right now, which is that one country after another. I'm looking at the UK, I'm looking at France, I'm looking at
Italy,
countries, Italy, where, they're all moving in the same direction on immigration.
And it's politically, because we've lost the narrative. It's politically, I guess, acceptable or winning argument to do it this way. There's far right candidates winning in these European countries on this topic. And I think it's honestly, we're going to lose all the positive work. I feel like we're so close, because nobody will actually speak up and say, actually, you have that argument wrong.
Yeah, another good point from Casey. I don't know if it's Casey Anmo or Casey Mo, but on there that it's not like we don't have a desperate need for all these people that are showing. I mean, like if just give all these people work cards that are at the border and would be probably more useful. And it's sort of another illustration of the failure of Congress that we don't actually have a work visa system that, they all say, oh, we need to tighten up the border. But maybe, I mean, let's say all that's true. It would be, if we actually stop the flow completely at the border, we still need to have a very robust immigration system because we have a shrinking population. We have a population that will not work in agriculture, that will not do a lot of difficult jobs in major industries in the U.S. And nobody actually that is talking about tightening up at the border has an answer for that. It's like, well, okay, who are you sending to replace these illegal workers in agricultural jobs if they're not going to be done by immigrants? And nobody has an answer for that on there. And I always say people, it's like, do you like imported oil? You're going to love having all your food imported too.
Right.
There and then
they have and then we have a child labor crisis. A lot of them are foreign nationals, but that's where it goes. People get indentured because if there's no competition, it really puts a lot of power in the hands of employers to exploit. And no, the whole narrative. I mean, honestly, I feel we don't have the message. We don't have a positive message. And to be honest, both parties are at fault because one has taken the narrative and twisted it, and one is not fighting back with facts. And I feel like that's where if this is it, if he has to cave on this because we need to do it, that's fine. But when the election starts, and it's going to start like yesterday, he needs to make amends if he can. And his administration really needs to detail a comprehensive framework that is believable. Because he had a great one that he ran on, and they put it in the trash. I mean, a lot of it.
Well, we'll see. I have a feeling by the time we have our next live stream, we're going to probably have a better picture of what this thing is actually going to look like if it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to give up on on Ukraine. I think they have to make some kind of deal. All right, let's call it a day. Chuck is in Antarctica. I don't know where he's off on his way somewhere far from here. So I think he said he's out for 3 weeks on this. It's like
guy is a world traveler.
It sounds pretty good on there. So I'm not sure what our schedules are going to be like over the holidays, but we may be back next week. Maybe not. We'll have to do a survey and figure out like what people.
We may have to have a holiday session at some point.
There you go. Maybe we'll come with holiday drinks in hand, and
maybe we'll get a Christmas miracle or a holiday miracle here with the Gomez decision and close out the year on a positive note. That'd be certainly a nice present to have, and hopefully, honestly, what I'd like to see is an end to some of the parade of horrors out there when every time I turn on the news. I need some good news from people. So many people are just not doing well in the world. Most of them would qualify as refugees at this point. It just drives me nuts. It does.
On that happy note, we will we'll call.
Well, hey, we're here for those people. That's why we exist.
That's right.
You could be, I don't know, coaching the Memphis Grizzlies for all I know, and you're not.
Taylor Jenkins' job is safe.
You're grinding. We're here. We'll be here next week. If not, we'll be here around the holidays at some point.
You guys take it easy.
Bye-bye.